grab something to eat, and then we'll finish up. You can have something to eat, Mama. I'll prefer that you come closer. Let's leave the back row for the latecomers. I promise I won't take too long. Please grab your food and come inside. Grab your food and come inside. I hope we're having a good time. Woo! How many people are having a good time? They say health is wealth, all right? If you're healthy, you are wealthy. Say, I am healthy. All right. How many people have had their blood pressure checked today? Okay. How many people checked their weight? Okay, how many people did not check their weight? See, you didn't check your weight? Is it fear or knowledge is power? You cannot fix something you don't know about. All right? You may think you know it, but when you see the numbers would paint a different picture. All right. How many people check their blood glucose? All right. How many people's blood glucose was abnormal? They're not here. How many people check their cholesterol? How many people did not check their cholesterol? Not yet. Not yet. Okay, how many people did Sister Buki Abioye not check something? Because we're like, which one was cholesterol? Okay. So we're still here till 2 o'clock, so there's time, all right? You're not late. Amen. So without much ado, I'm going to get started. Please, ushers, I want everyone out of that lobby. Please, let's come inside. Okay. All right, so I'm going to get started. My name is Dr. Edidion Ekanem. Most people know me as Didi, and I am a medical doctor by training. I currently work as a quality practice advisor. I advise practices on how to stay straight. All right, so without much ado, how many people know their bodies? As in, you know your body well. It's question and answer. It's very going to be interactive. So, the theme of this conference was Know Your Body. And the goal is that at the end of this whole session, you should know your weight, know your height, know your BMI, know your blood glucose, know your blood cholesterol. And finally, we wrap it up with Know Your Breast. All right. So as you can see, the theme that I'm going to talk about is know your breast. Tell your neighbor, know your breast. Know your boobs. I'm not shy to talk about breasts because breasts are very important. How many people agree? Yes, yes. I have believers in the house. Yes, yes. So the good thing is both male and female have breasts. So even the guys have breasts. They may think it's not, but everybody has breasts. All right. So the goal of this is to teach you to know your breast, to know all about breast cancer. Breast cancer is a very, very, what will I say? It's a very sad thing to find out you have, but the good thing is early detection is key. So that's what we're going to talk about today. And once it's detected early, there's hope. There's always hope. It's never a death sentence. All right? So today we're going to cover a few topics. We'll talk about how common is breast cancer. We'll talk about what is breast cancer. We'll talk about the causes, the risk factors, how we can prevent it, how we can test and screen and all that to get, and then what you can do to, prevent it from happening. So I'll talk about how common it is. It is the second most common cancer among women in the United States. So that shows you that it is a big deal. And it is the second leading cause of cancer-related death in women. So it is the most common cancer in women. I take that back. It's the most common cancer in women. And then the death rates have been going down a little bit because of early detection, because of information, because we're trying to create the awareness. As we all know, October is what's October? Breast Cancer Awareness Month. So I want everyone to, in solidarity, support the Breast Cancer Awareness Month. Wear pink, use the breast cancer logo, just show your solidarity. Now we're going to do a little anatomy about the female breast. All right, look at this beautiful picture. Looks like somebody's breast, right? Right? Okay. As you can see, every breast has a nipple, has an areola. The black tissue you see around your breast is called areola. And then, of course, the mons itself, the fatty tissue. So the breast inside, this is a cross-section of the boobs. It's made up of lobules. It's made up of lobules that flow into ducts, and then those ducts come out through the nipples. So when milk is produced in the lobules. For those of us that have had babies and breastfed, the milk is produced in the lobules. The lobules flow through the ducts, and then the milk flows out through the nipple. And then the surrounding tissue is made up of fat, the stroma. That's the fatty tissue and connective tissue. That's what holds the breast up together. All right. Any questions about the anatomy? No. Okay. So what is breast cancer then? Cancer is the growth of abnormal cells. These cells invade and damage the regular tissue, and it can start in any part of the breast. Remember, I talked about the lobules, I talked about the ducts, I talked about the nipple. It can start in any part. If the cancer starts in the duct, it's called invasive ductal carcinoma. If it's in the lobules, it's called invasive lobular carcinoma. There are so many other types of cancer, but this is just a broad example. Now, what are the causes of breast cancer? As of today, nobody really knows the most common cause of breast cancer, but there are so many risk factors, predisposing factors, and there are things that could change. For example, the DNA material in our cells. When there is the most likely cause is related to like a DNA change in your cell. And then some of these DNA changes could be environmental, could be an exposure. For example, those that work with radiations and stuff like that, they're exposed to certain radiations and they're predisposed to cancers. And then certain lifestyles, and all which we will talk about later, your age and all that, other factors can predispose somebody to. Now, what is a risk factor? A risk factor is anything that can either increase or decrease a person's chance of getting a disease. For example, this cancer we're talking about. And there are many known factors, risk factors. Some of them are changeable and some are unchangeable. So the changeable ones need to be changed, and then the ones that you cannot really do anything about, we pray. All right. So now I'm going to talk a little bit about some things you cannot do about. Gender, for example. Being a woman is the main risk factor, is a risk factor for developing breast. Can you change being a woman? Well, I mean, now you can, but I mean, no matter what changes, your DNA and all doesn't really change. You're still female. So being a female increases your risk compared to being a male. And then age, everybody grows older, no matter the Mary Kay or the collagen or the firming stuff you use, we still grow old. So aging increases your risk of having cancer. So that means older women are more at risk of having cancer than younger women. So there are also genetic predisposing factors. There's a gene mutation called the BRCA1 and BRCA2. So women who have this genetic mutation have an increased risk of developing breast cancer in their lifetime. All right. So there are a few of them that have detected these genes early, and they went ahead and did a bilateral mastectomy, took out their ovaries and all that. And it does prevent, but these are things that you cannot really change. You can't change the genes that you have. All right? So we keep talking about some of the risk factors that you cannot really do much about. For example, a family history of breast cancer increases your risk of having it. Now, what is a family history? It's not just an old aunt, my husband's mother's, aunties, no. We're talking about direct relatives. For example, if your mother had breast cancer, your chances of having breast cancer is a little bit higher. And then a personal history of breast cancer. A woman who has had cancer in one breast has an increased risk of developing a new cancer in the other breast or in another part of the same breast. So these are some of the risk factors that you cannot really do much about. Now we'll talk about a few that maybe you can work on. How many menopausal mommies do we have here? Just a few of you. Yeah. So unfortunately, menopause comes with its fair share of drama, like the hot flashes, the vaginal dryness, and all that. So some women tend to use what we call hormone replacement therapy, which is estrogen. And that helps to relieve some of those symptoms. But studies have shown that it increases the risk of having some cancer. Not to say, most times the benefit may outweigh that, so it depends on the exact symptom the woman is having. If it's stuff that is unbearable, then we would encourage the hormonal treatment. But if it's avoidable, then we would go otherwise. There's what we call DES. DES is called diethylstilbestrol. It's an old estrogen pill in the early 90s that was given to pregnant women to prevent miscarriages. It's a non-steroidal estrogen. And it's been found that people who use that DES or who are exposed to it, they call them either DES daughters or DES sons, mothers that had the people that were using the diethylstilbestrol have a slightly increased risk of developing certain cancers. Thankfully, now the CDC has scrapped that medication. It's not really used anymore. Then also, recent use of hormonal contraceptives slightly increases your risk. But usually it goes down if you stop it, so don't be afraid. I know many of us are on hormonal contraception. Yeah, so not that you should stop it. I'm not trying to discourage you from stopping it, but it does increase. Studies have shown that it does increase the risk, especially the estrogen-based. Now we give more of progesterone contraception. Progesterone is safe. But the estrogen-based ones, solely estrogen-based, have a slightly increased risk. So most times it's usually a combination, progesterone and estrogen. All right. Race. Being African American. How many of us are not African American? Yes, but being African American increases your risk. All right. And also, it's just a genetic constitution, sorry. And then women who tend to have denser breast tissues are also at an increased risk. We'll take questions later, okay? I know, keep them coming. I'll take them. So these are some of the risk factors I believe that you can, to a large extent, change, which is not having children or having them later in life above 30 puts a woman at a slightly higher risk. In other words, we're encouraging you to have your kids early. You know why? Because the longer you menstruate, the more you produce estrogen, the more cycles you have. But when you get pregnant, it's almost like your body takes a 9-month break, and we have more progesterone. So it's almost like it keeps you somewhat protected. So not having children or having them later in life also. And then more menstrual cycles. The slightly higher risk if a woman started menstruating much earlier, or if she goes through menopause much later. And also not breastfeeding. Some studies have suggested that breastfeeding may slightly lower the breast cancer risk. So please breastfeed your babies, okay? Breastfeed your babies, okay? All right. So now we'll also look at some risk factors that you can control. Where is my highlighter? Obesity. How many people had their BMI above 30 today? Raise your hands. How many people had their BMI above 35 today? Yes. All right. So we need to work on that. Then also, not having kids. If it's intentional, that's okay. But if we encourage that. Then breastfeeding, like I talked about earlier. Alcohol. These are some of the things you can work on. The HRTs, if you can avoid them, fine. And of course, exercising. All right. With respect to exercising, we encourage to be more active. Because obesity raises the risk of having breast cancer, especially among women that are menopausal. You know why? So let me explain a little bit. When you're menopausal, you tend to accumulate more fatty tissue. And guess what? Fat can be converted to estrogen. So the culprit here is always the estrogen. So you want to try and really, especially we all know that once you're menopausal, losing weight is so hard. It's in fact, once you're above 40, it's harder to lose weight. So we encourage you to try and keep it low. That way your body kind of gets used to it. All right? And of course, alcohol. How many people take alcohol? We're in church, I know. Yeah. But a glass of wine is okay, but not too much. All right. Now, I just want to quickly touch on the signs and symptoms to look out for. So if you remember, I started by explaining that you need to know your breast so you can know when things are not right, when there's an anomaly. You look out for a lump in the breast. Those are some of the signs of symptoms. An inverted nipple. This is a typical normal breast. An inverted nipple looks, well, my picture is not too clear, but it's like it's going inside the nipple. Then you also look out for nipple discharge. If it's blood or it's clear, you need to look out for that. Then also for pain, breast pain, nipple pain, look out for that. Look out for sores in the areola. The areola is that dark portion around the nipple, sorry. So you look out for sores on the nipple area, and then also for lymph nodes enlarged lymph nodes under your arm. So there's no major way of preventing breast cancer, but there are things that you can do to reduce your risk and help increase the odds that you wouldn't get it. So with respect to screening, like I always say, that early detection is the key. The size of a breast cancer and how far it has spread are very important factors in predicting your prognosis. So that shows you the importance of early detection. Because if we're finding out by the time the size is maybe almost 4 centimeters, or it has metastasized to other parts of your body, the prognosis are much slimmer. So with respect to screening, there are 3 major ways of screening. There's the breast self-examination, there's clinical breast examination, and of course, radiology, imaging like mammogram and stuff like that. So I just want to talk a little more about breast self-examination, which is within your reach, something you can do. How many people do breast self-examinations regularly? All right. So I'm going to teach you how to examine your breast regularly. Once you are above the age, once you are 20 and up, you have to do this regularly. And it has to be done every month. For menstruating women, when is the best time to do your breast self-examination? Those that do it. All right, so there's a key. You don't just do it anytime. You do it 5 to 7 days after the beginning of your period. So let's say you had a period September 1. So about 5 to 7 days, by then the period is almost done. So that's a good time. So like September 6, September 8, then you do the breast self-examination. Now for menopausal women who are like, what are you talking about menstruating? We don't do that anymore. When do you do that? So you pick any time of the month. So let's say if your favorite day is 15 or your birthday was 16 or 8th, you can do it the 8th of every month. So the important thing is it needs to be consistent. So if I do it on the 8th of August, 8th of September, 8th of October, like that. And also for pregnant women, you still have to do a breast self-examination. And that the same thing applies, the same date every month. So if it's 15th or 10th, whatever, every month, you do it at the same time. Usually we advise that you do it for about 10 good minutes of your time will be good. So I have a picture of how to do it. This is very important. So you lie flat on your bed. I would have done it, but I don't have a bed. So you lie flat on the bed, put your left hand behind your head. We get it? Are you following me? Then you use your right hand to examine. And then vice versa, when you're doing the other hand, you put your right hand behind, and then you use your left hand to examine. So you use the pulp of your finger, preferably the first 3 fingers, your index, middle, and your ring finger. And then you go in circular motion, preferably from the collarbone all the way down to below your ribs. So you go around. Is that easy? In circular motions. Make sure you use the pulp of your finger, all right? Like the diagram there, she tried to describe it. And then when you do that, what are you looking for? You're checking for any lumps, any knots, you're looking for any thickening, any abnormality. I assure you that if you do this every month regularly, let's say after 5, if you stick to 5 days after every period to do it, you'll begin to know what normal feels like for your breast. So you'll be able to see what's abnormal. All right? Because at different cycles of your period, your breast feels different. Just during ovulation, your boobs, they don't feel good. During after ovulation, between ovulation and your next period, that's where it feels really dense. Just before your period comes, your boobs feel very heavy and dense. And that's not a good time to do because you may feel something, but that's actually not a lump. It's just you getting ready to menstruate. And then after you've done that, then you stand up straight, get a mirror, stand in front of your mirror, put your hands on your hip, like that, and then you look at the breast. So you're looking for any abnormal shape, any indentations, any changes. You're looking for anything that looks off, pretty much. And then you finally lift your hands up that way, and then you feel your areola, your armpit. You're also looking for any lumps, looking for any nodules, and all that. Because your breast extends to your axilla. It doesn't just stand there, it goes all the way there. And then finally, you squeeze on the nipple. You squeeze on the nipple, you're looking for any discharge. White, blue, purple, red, yellow, whatever color. You're looking out for any discharge. Colorless, clear, whichever one. But you're looking out for any discharge, because once you see any discharge, it's a sign that something may be wrong. All right, and then that's all breast self-examination, which is within your control. And then there's the clinical breast clinical breast examination, which is done by either your PCP, your NP, your primary care provider, whoever. And we encourage that you do it annually. For women over 40, it should be done annually, and then at least every 3 years for women between 20 and 40. And then those with a higher risk, we do it more regularly. And then, of course, your mammogram. How many women have had a mammogram before? Good. So you have to do your mammogram regularly. Especially we African-American women, we tend to have denser breasts, and that's a predisposing factor. That's an increased risk for us. So doing mammography at least once a year or every 3 years, depending on what they find, it's good. Okay. Now, if you do have breast cancer, there are so many treatments. There's surgery, radiation therapy, chemotherapy, hormonal therapy. For the surgery, there's a simple lumpectomy where they just go in, take out the lump, and then send it to pathology to see if it's malignant or not. And then there's modified radical mastectomy. Modified radical mastectomy just means they take off the breast, take off everything, and leave what we call the pectoralis muscle behind, the chest muscle behind. Then there's also radical mastectomy, where you take out everything. The axillary and also the pectoralis muscle is taken off. Most times after surgery, after mastectomy, they may still do chemotherapy afterwards. So how can we beat this thing? Ask your neighbor, how can we beat this? What you can do, you can change those risk factors that you can change. Let's start with that. For example, weight. I'm big on weight, right? Yeah. So I think if we get to stay at a healthy weight throughout our lives, that's a good thing, all right? So let's work on it. Eat healthy, fruits and vegetables. You can't go without them. Secondly, we need to be active. Stay active, limit alcohol use. And then some women who are at that age can also think of when you have your baby, you breastfeed, and then not using hormonal therapy to deal with your menopausal symptoms. And also, this is just telling you for the adults, you don't necessarily have to go, because I was thinking of the grandmamas. I was like, oh, if you talk about exercising, many of them are like, where do I start from? You don't necessarily have to go register in a gym, go on a treadmill and be panting there. But just simple walks. So they advise that you should engage in a walk for at least 150 minutes for moderate intensity, or 75 minutes of vigorous intensity and intensive activity, or an equivalent. Preferably spread it throughout the week, all right? Limit sedentary behaviors. Find your grandkids, run around with them, or just be active, all right? For those of us who are much younger, join a gym. If they're doing deals, participate in something. I know, where's Sister Shoobs? She's an inspiration. All right, so register in a gym, get fit, all right? Because I know we are all busy, we're working, you don't have time, but you have to make time, okay? And then, of course, get screened. Once you're 40 and over, please make sure you schedule for your mammogram regularly, all right? And then also, when you see your doctor and you have a family history, make sure you talk about, especially if it's a direct relative, a mother who passed of breast cancer or who has breast cancer, then you have to have a heightened outlook for that. All right, I just want to quickly debunk some myths that we have, that breast cancer only affects older women. Is that true? No. Now everybody, the younger ones, everyone is getting it. So we have to be on high alert. 2, if you have a risk factor for breast cancer, you're likely to get disease. Is that true? No. You may have a risk factor, it doesn't mean you will get the disease. All right? Then 3, using deodorants, antiperspirants causes breast cancer. How many have heard that before? Yeah. Is it a myth or a fact? Yeah, it's a myth. It's a myth, all right? And then a breast cancer diagnosis is an automatic death sentence. That's a lie. How many breast cancer survivors do we know? A lot of them. They are out there, so it's not true. And then finally, is this a fact or true? Breast cancer is preventable. Fact. That's the truth. I'm done. So, thank you. I have a few information. The breast cancer, Montgomery County Women Cancer Control Program team was supposed to be here, but they had an emergency and they canceled on me this morning. But that's their number to call. If you know anyone that needs a mammogram, but maybe you don't have insurance, please just see me. We have the information on those materials. And then, of course, there's the American Cancer Society. Their website is there. So, yeah. Thank you. All right. So I know we still have our team downstairs waiting to finish up your vitals, but I just want to take a few questions. If anybody has any question that is bothering you. Oh, yes.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Dite. I actually watched a movie about this breast cancer. So the mother had breast cancer and she died. So when this lady was maybe like 25 or 26, she was thinking about having the breast cancer, and she later had the breast cancer. So my husband and I, we were now discussing that. Why didn't she do the radical, whatever, like cutting the breast off? Probably she would survive it if she had done that. So I'm thinking we should be able to deliver, like be pregnant, if she cut off the breast.
So would she have been able to?
To be pregnant. Like if you cut off the breast, can you be pregnant?
Yes. Yes, yes, yes. So, yes. So just to correct that, if you are pregnant, if you have a mastectomy, yes, you can still be pregnant. Yes. There are two different systems. It does not change. One does not affect the other. So even if, there's, what's this popular actress that took off her both breasts? Angelina Jolie. Yeah, we all know that. So it doesn't change that the fact that you've had a bilateral mastectomy or you've taken off your breast, you can still have children. Those are two different systems completely. Amen. While we continue, if you have the consent form with you, please give them to Miss Juliet. We're not done. She's going through. Just give it to Miss Juliet. Yeah. Yes. Okay. One more question or two more questions.
So, Dr. Didi, on one of the slides, you said African American women are likely to die from breast cancer. So my question is, does that mean getting a cure is tougher for them? We're not getting a cure, curing it. Is it tougher for the African American than any other race?
Yeah. So unfortunately, being an African American is derogatory somewhat because there are so many limiting factors. For example, the socioeconomic factors. So most African Americans don't tend to detect the cancer early because they don't have the resources to reach out and get it early. For example, maybe they don't have insurance, or if they find it, it's too late, stuff like that, or education, knowledge, and stuff like that. So that's why being an African American puts you at a higher risk of dying from it, not necessarily because the kind of cancer we have will kill you more than, it's just that we wouldn't detect it too early. By the time we're detecting it, it's at stage 4, metastasized to the lungs, the liver, you're a hot mess. So that's just why. Mr. P.
Yes, I just wanted to make a comment, because as we are educating women, we should educate men as well, because I tend to believe that, especially when you're married, your husband knows your breast maybe better than you do. And so when you educate them while they are acting, what they're doing their job, they can easily notice that something's wrong, and they will let you know.
Please, can we give it up for Sister P? And I totally agree with her. I totally agree with her, because they probably do more massaging than you do yourself, right? So, better still, you can give them the job. God has blessed me. My husband is a medical doctor, so I get free checkups every time. All right. Any other questions? If not, we'll go down and continue our medical checkup. All right. Oh, one more question. Let's take that. That's very important.
What is your thoughts on the new proton therapy for breast cancer?
Yes.
For cancer.
Yes. So proton therapy is one of the newer treatment modalities that have come out. Proton therapy, I mean, it's still on the stage of being more investigated, but it's out there. The good thing about proton therapy is that it's more targeted. That's the goal. So it's like, if, let's say, you're getting the proton therapy, it can focus more specifically on the cancer cells directly compared to the regular cobalt and the other treatment we used before. So proton therapy is the future of therapy for radiation with, for breast cancer. So it's good. It's good.
Want to add that, I know it's a breast cancer topic about women, but we should always know that men too can have breast cancer. So just let our husbands aware about that.
So if you remember, our opening statement was that both male and female have breasts. So the same thing applies to the guys. They can also, as they're examining our breasts, you can also examine their breast tissues. All right, go ahead.
A question. Recently, I get to know that vitamin D is also help in regulating breast cancer. Do you want to shed more light on that?
Okay. So, of course, the place of vitamins, in my opinion, cannot be overemphasized, because what the vitamins do, they help with antioxidants, which are what help to kill those cells that actually cause cause cancer. So vitamin D plays a role, but I wouldn't say just vitamin D. I know that even vitamin C is a great antioxidant. It does help. So taking multivitamins, it's good. So what the bottom line is, your fruits, your vegetables that are rich in especially the micronutrients, they are like super oxygens, and they help to fight the cancer cells. So great, great. Let's take it. All right? Yeah. Any other question? I'm here to answer questions. Here for you.
Would you advise your patients to, regarding their diet, if they should come off of meat? if they have cancer and they're taking treatment, you know, because meat has so much other hormones in it. So, what do you think?
Okay, so, everything in moderation. Moderation is always key. I wouldn't advise you to eliminate meat completely because of vitamin B12, which we all know is necessary. But if you're sure that you can get it from other sources, like your eggs, or even taking the vitamin B12 supplements, that's okay. But with respect to cancer, the vegetables, fruits are more helpful in preventing that compared to the meats. So I would say that you could cut them down because also, remember we talked about one of the risk factors was your weight, and we all know that eating a lot of meat and all that tends to increase your cholesterol, can help make you overweight and stuff like that. So cutting down, I would not say eliminate completely. If you want to, it's okay. But don't eliminate completely, but you could cut it down. But I think you should major more on your fruits, your leafy green vegetables, the spinach, the kale, and all that, very essential. So that's my take on it. I wouldn't say eliminate completely. You could reduce because we don't want to have to battle with your B12 now being an issue, B12 being low and you're anemic from B12 deficiency and then other things that come with that. That's against, so I would say everything in moderation, but increase more of your fruits and vegetables. All right. Okay. So we have nice wellness goods displayed out there. So we want you to go out. If you've already done all your vitals, please just go out, take your, look through what they have. If you didn't get your massage, Michelle is still in the house, our masseuse. Yeah, she'll be here till about 2. So let's go get our massages. And also, yeah. Thank you. Thank you all.